One of the original Dapol Class 68s in the DRS Compass livery has been one of my favourite locomotives since I purchased it a number of years ago. Earlier this year I acquired one of the Transpennine liveried models with the view to running it with the upcoming Accurascale Mark V train pack, and it has become one of the favourites on my layout. With another run of Class 68s landing now, it's time to take a closer look and cover my experience with both this and the previous Class 68 models in my fleet. Hi, thanks for joining today's review. So the first thing we'll do is a quick unboxing of the Class 68 TPE version. We'll then do a close-up view, and as part of that we'll also take a look at how it compares to the prototype. We'll then get into a brief running session, followed by a summary of all of the TPE liveried Class 68s that exist today, and get into the scoring and final recommendation. Okay, let's get underway. Okay, so we're going to take a look at this Dapol Class 68. It's the third 68 that I have, and it's in the Transpennine Express livery, and I've got this specifically to go with the Mark V coaches from Accurascale, which I hope to see in the next few months, probably around the middle of the year. We'll hopefully see those coaches coming, so need a locomotive to go with them, and so I went with this one. And there are a number of newer versions, I suppose, or reruns, I suppose is probably more accurate, of the Transpennine livery going to be coming out from Dapol hopefully over the next few months, so people will be able to pick those up to go with their Mark Vs if they're going to be picking up those Mark Vs. So I'm going to take a look at this guy, and he's I have done a full reviews previously of the Class 68, so we'll probably go through this pretty quickly. This one comes DCC fitted. Now I am going to probably put a sound decoder in this before we actually run it, so we will take a look at that. I think the first comment, and if you've been on any of my reviews for the Dapol locomotives, is I just think their packaging is top notch, and we'll kind of see all the good reasons for that when we take this out. It's kind of multiple layers. You've got that outer foam layer, you've got this other layers of foam either side, front and back, and underneath and top. So for a heavy locomotive, and you know, I take an example of the Class 67 from Hornby, for example, which is kind of the similar sort of weight. It needs this type of protection, and it doesn't have it, unfortunately, so that is an issue. So we'll take this guy out, and we'll take a look at him. And I think this, if you've already had a Class 68, you know what it's like, and you like the Class 68, well then this guy is all about the livery. And you see these extra protectors as well under the bogies that we have in there. So I think this livery is absolutely spectacular. I really like it, and I think this locomotive out of the box here really does look spectacular. Class 68s tend to be pretty good, and this one looks really nice. So this is Achilles. They all have different names. Comes with sprung buffers, of course, front and rear. Comes with pretty good lighting package as well. Lots of detail. You can see the grille there with some detail in behind it. You can see the nice wheels and bogie detail. So overall, this locomotive is a very nice piece of work, and all the Class 68s, it shares that with the other Class 68s. Nice little bit of weight on it as well. A few things: there is no fitted driver. Unfortunately, Dapol don't tend to do drivers. But in all other respects, this is a very nice locomotive, and we shall see how she performs. I'm going to put sound into this, so for the running session we will have sound. It'll be interesting to do this side-on view. I think the other point to make on this is it does come with a little bit of a detailing kit, so there's some extra bits and pieces in here, but a lot is already pre-installed. So there's a lot of detail on the front and rear buffer beams. There's a valance in there on both sides, and they've already taken off the coupler on the front end, which is great. So you kind of get this out of the box pre-fitted with a lot of the detailing kit. You don't have to go fitting it yourself. I think the livery is really nice, so really looking forward to seeing this with the Mark Vs. It's an absolutely spectacular livery, to be honest. and then you've got the fantastic labeling detail on this model. So, out of the box, looks really good, really well packed. Looks like a spectacular model. We'll do the close-up view now, a 360 view of it. And then we get the sound into this model. We'll run it. Now, I'm going to be running it with some Mark III coaches. We don't have Transpennine Mark 5s yet, so please, you'll have to forgive me on that one until we get those. We will definitely do a running session with those when we get them. But so far so good. This looks really, really good. A fantastic, spectacular looking model from Dapol. So looking forward to going to the next part of the review with this. Okay. Okay, now we're going to get into the close-up view. So we're going to looking at the Achilles model here, side on, 68023. You can see the very nicely rendered, sharply rendered livery there. A lot of the detailing in the underbody and bogie area there. An awful lot of detailed labeling. As you can see, the nice grille with the detail behind it. There's a nice roof detail, and we'll see that in the 360 view. The Transpennine Express logo there, very nicely rendered. We've kind of got the panelized sides there, and I'll talk about that again in a few minutes when we look at the prototype. And a huge amount of labeling in the underbody area there again. Nice detail of the fuel area. Again, nice underbody and bogie detail, and again some more grills and fans on the top. We've got the handrails there, the laddering, and again very nicely rendered at the front. So really magnificent looking model, and an awful lot of detail to look at there. We're looking front on, so this is the front of the locomotive, which has got a lot of the detailing pre-added to the buffer beam, and the coupler has been removed. So this is out of the box. This is how you get it. Obviously you can add in the coupler if you wish, and be able to run in both directions. Here you can see the roof detail now a lot more. You've got the separately fitted parts on the roof there, and that kind of middle section on the roof, the middle chimney area there, which is removable, and there's dip switches in there to allow you to control the lighting function. So that's how you actually access that, and we'll just insert a quick photo for you to see what that looks like. So a nice little option to do that. Now, unfortunately, if you want to add your DCC, you do have to open up the body. It isn't so bad opening the body, thankfully, on these particular locomotives. There's just 4 clips, and they do come away pretty easily. So that side of it is good. So now we're going to take a look at the prototype. It's courtesy of Allan McKever, and it's a nice rendering of 68023 with some weathering applied to it. Just going to highlight a few areas in red there. The front steps there, the foothold going in just onto the door, and again that area just around the paneling. And so we'll take a look at these on the model, and you can see, for example, we are missing the yellow end of one of the steps there, and the area, that foothold area under the door, is brightly painted on the model, whereas it appears black or dark in all of the prototypes, and that's common to all of them now, not just 68023. When you look at the paneling on the actual prototype, you see it's quite called out. It's very distinctive, with a distinctive black demarcation, so it really makes the paneling on the side of the locomotive stand out quite a bit. Again, this is common to all the 68 TPEs, whereas on the model it isn't so. It's just part of the regular paint job. There isn't an additional detail to call out the edges of those panels as you see on the prototype. That's probably the main item I would have liked to have seen. The other ones are very small. It kind of gives the locomotive that distinctive look that it has, or certainly contributes to it. I think the other thing, when you look at these two pictures, the prototype and the model side by side, if you look at the other side of the equation, you can just see what a fantastic job Dapol have done. So I've picked a few issues here. They're really small, and in the overall scheme of things, the model from Dapol is absolutely excellent. One of the things I do want to call out is the texture of the finish on the Dapol model, which does go a long way to be as close as possible to the real-life prototype. Typically you get kind of matte finishes or textured finishes on locomotives which are not prototypical, whereas I think Dapol have attempted to make the texture on the front of the locomotive in particular as much in line with the prototype as possible, and I think that's to their credit. They've come pretty close with it. That's way better than what I've seen on most other locomotives. So overall, a really good job from Dapol. a couple of little things that they could probably address in the future, but there's nothing fatal here. This is a very good rendering of this locomotive and a very good rendering of this particular livery. And I think the next hope obviously is when we put this together with the Cure scale in Mark V coaches, that we've got the kind of match that we're looking for and hoping for, and hopefully have a very, very nice train as a result. Okay, let's get into the running session. So we're running here with 68023 with DCC sounds fitted. Now I actually pulled the DCC sound out of one of my other Class 68, so it's representative of the out-of-box sounds that you would get if you purchased the sound equipped models from Dapol. We're pulling 5 Mark III coaches, the Virgin Mark IIIs from Hornby, and we're picking up speed pretty quickly here. And I guess the message from this is that I really didn't have any problems with this locomotive, and I haven't had any problems in the past. For the coupling hook, if it's not coupled to a wagon, the coupling hook can lie a little bit low and can get, it doesn't catch, but you'll see it move when you go over points, for example. I called this out in the original review of the DRS version when I got that, and you can just easily crop the little piece underneath the coupling hook to stop that happening. It doesn't cause any problems in this. I certainly didn't, it wasn't catching here or anything like that, but you could see it actually hitting a point, for example, when you were going over it. So something to note, but no derailment, no problems like that. Very smooth runner, very powerful runner, obviously, with given the weight of this locomotive, so we'll certainly be able to draw from pretty good loads. Getting it up to prototypical 85 miles an hour speed, scale speed here. Very, very pleased with the running performance overall. This is a very nice running locomotive, there's no doubt about that. So we're just going to slow her down now a little bit. I guess the other comment is regarding the factory fitted sound, which probably has dated a bit, and there are better options now. So I'll talk about that in the summary, but I think one of my recommendations would be that you perhaps look at an alternative sound option, because the sound equipped locomotives tend to be only available from Dapol themselves. They're not discounted, so they're not as good value actually as the DC ready locomotives that you buy from, say Hattons, for example, or Rails. So here we're now getting down to a nice slow crawl, and we'll bring it to a halt in a minute. I suppose just to note on the lighting, we were running with the halo lights actually on here. You may have noticed that. An overall very satisfactory running session. Okay, let's get into the summary. So the first view I have here is of all of the Class 68 models in the TPE livery from Dapol. The original was Brutus 6819. We've been looking at 6823 and 6832 would have come out around the same time. And the two new models are 6827 and 68031, Splendid and Felix, which are due to drop any day now. So they're the 5 models in this Transpennine Express livery. Okay, let's take a look at the features. So we've got directional lighting, and extra features are the headlight. Again, this directional headlight, halo lights, again, which are directional and effectively replace the standard directional lighting, and the cab lighting. Now, there are multiple control options for the lighting, and you can control, say, the train mode operation, for example, via DCC. However, the cab lighting is only controlled via the dip switches. And this is probably the biggest gap, I think, on this particular model from a lighting perspective. They obviously ran out of controls from the DCC controller on the original version of this model, which would typically have had 6 controls, and that wasn't enough to cover all the directional, halo and cab lighting, and hence they put the cab lighting on the dip switches. So it is a bit of a nuisance, and it is nice to be able to turn that lighting on and off when you're in a station, for example. You'll want to probably turn it on to allow for like staff changes, that kind of thing, and then turn it off when you're running, which you don't want to have to be lifting up the roof to do that. So that's probably the main gap there. Comes with printed and etched nameplates, and comes with the cast wheels with the fine relief detail. It comes in 2 forms, 21-pin DCC ready, as well as the fitted and sound versions, and we'll talk about those from a pricing perspective later on. It comes with a full metal chassis with the all-wheel pickup and dual bogie drive, and this is really what gives its excellent performance characteristics. And it is ultra detailed, as I think you'll have seen, and effectively the detailing kit that you'd normally get with a locomotive like this has effectively been pre-fitted. Now there still are some additional detailing parts provided, but you've got the front buffer beam is kind of effectively decorated, the couplers removed. You're getting that out of the box. The weight is coming in at 674 grams, which is heavy, and that's the DCC sound fitted. That is actually lighter than the first of the Class 68s that I purchased, which was a DRS version a number of years ago, which weighed in at over 700 grams. Now, the only real difference I can think of between those models would be, say, the density of the metal used in the metal chassis, which could have some variation in it. So that's possibly what's causing the difference there. Using a slightly different type of metal would give it obviously a different weight. The top speed was 85 miles per hour at 100% throttle, drawing 290 milliamps with the 5 coaches, or drawing 230 milliamps with no coaches. So I guess the disappointing part here is that the scale speed, top speed for this would be 100 miles per hour. We weren't able to achieve that, and I also had the CV5 setting at a maximum. Now this was under DCC. I haven't tested this under DC only. I don't have a circuit with sufficiently large radius that I'd be happy to be running at those speeds. So this was only under DCC, but it is disappointing nevertheless that I couldn't achieve that with the out-of-box DCC sound version. And that applies to all the Class 68s that I have, so it's not specific to this version. Typical selling price, DC ready comes in at 136 up to the recommended retail price at £160. You will typically see it at that £136 level, so that's what you'll get from most of the main retailers. And that's a very good price. That's the price to kind of go for. Fitted will always be more expensive. I think up to £30 more expensive, and really it's up to yourself if you want to get that. And then the sound fitted, factory fitted sound, £260. Now, I guess if you look at the difference in price between that and the DCC ready version, the price that you typically pay, so you're talking about £124 there for your sound. You'll easily get a third-party sound option with a good speaker, for less than that. My advice is really to shop around and get the third-party sound, and your total cost will still be much the same, but you'll have a better sound installed in your model. Okay, let's get on to the scoring. So the running performance is 9 out of 10, and the only gap here is that top speed, the inability to achieve that within the bounds of the 85 mile an hour speed that I was able to achieve. I didn't have any problems at all. It's a flawless performer and a very, very strong performer. Appearance in detail, 9.5 out of 10, and really just those couple of niggles that I talked about. But in the overall scheme of things, the appearance on this is absolutely excellent, and I actually prefer this particular livery to the DRS livery. DRS was my former favourite, and this has taken over. So I really, really do think they've done a great job on the TPE livery. The sound, I would have given a higher score when I did my original review of my very first Class 68 for the sound, but it has aged, and I think over time there are better options now available to it. I mean, in its original day, it was the only show in town, and it was reasonably good, but now there are much better options, I think, for the sound. So again, shop around to get those, and I think, as I said, you can still get those within the £260 envelope. Extras and variants, the main gaps here is the lighting control for the cab lighting. I would have liked the ability to turn that on and off via DCC, so that is an inconvenience, and it kind of makes the cab lighting a non-feature to a degree for DCC users, or for even analog users, because you don't want to be opening up the lid to turn the lights on. And then it doesn't have a fitted driver. I would have liked to have seen a fitted driver. So, they're the main kind of gaps, I would say, in terms of the extras. In terms of variants, we will have 5 variants for the TPE livery, which is excellent, as well as all the other variants of the liveries that are available for the Class 68 from Dapol. Build quality and packaging is 9.5 out of 10. The reason it isn't a 10 out of 10 did have a little issue again with the cab lighting. And it has to do with the 2 spring-mounted contacts for the cab lighting that sit in the body shell. and I'll just show them in the photograph there so you can see them. So those lights sit on a piece of PCB that protrudes from under the cab area, front and back. And unfortunately that PCB doesn't have support underneath it, and it can move. And when it moves, you will then lose contact with one or both of the two spring-loaded contacts, and your cab lighting will stop working. And the reason I know is because that's exactly what happened to me with this model, and that's the reason I've got these two little strong rubber inserts just in below the PCB, supporting the PCB, so that when you do put the body shell together with the main body, and the two contacts then come in contact with that PCB, you'll get a good contact, and your cab lights will work properly. So that's why I've got those installed. So that could have been handled by perhaps having a little support post or something in the plastics to support that little section of PCB that carries the two spring-loaded contacts. So the value, I'm giving a 9 out of 10 for the £136 price, and I think that's a price that you'll readily get for it, readily pay for it, and I think it's a 9 out of 10 at that price. Now, if you pay the $260, I think that's a little bit less. It's not quite the same value. It's maybe more of an 8 out of 10, 7 out of 10 type price. And then I've given two different overall scores, one for the DCC Ready version, which is a 9.2 out of 10, which is a really strong score. That's a really fantastic score once you get into the nines. And then with the sound, it's a little bit less, because you're carrying the sound score for the factory fitted sound, which is a 7 now. And you're also slightly less value as well. So that kind of tells you that the DCC Ready is the model to purchase, and if you want to add sound, then do that with a third-party sound option. The Dapol Class 68 is a superb modern image diesel from Dapol, with excellent running performance, appearance and overall quality. The design is a few years old now, and there are some minor enhancements that could make it even better. But these are still fantastic models as they are, and the Class 68 DRS and Class 68 TPE models are two of my all-time favourite diesel models. Overall, the TPE liveried version is excellent, and combined with the Accurascale Mark V coaches should make a top-class train. The DCC Ready versions are some of the best value locomotives out there, and I would recommend a third-party sound option over going with the sound-equipped versions, which are not as good value and don't have the best Class 68 sound you can get these days. Shop around with the likes of Roads and Rails and DC Kits for the best sound options on offer for this model. So the Dapol Class 68 in the Transpennine Express livery comes highly recommended, and is arguably a must-own for any modern image UK modeler. If you own a Dapol Class 68, be it the TPE or one of the other versions, please share your experiences and thoughts in the comments. So thanks for joining today. Please drop a like on the video if you found it of use, and any feedback as always in the comments please. I hope to have some slightly different and hopefully interesting videos over the coming weeks, as well as my review of the Accurascale Class 55 when my models arrive. So looking forward to seeing you on the next one, and in the meantime, happy modelling.